Go. All right, so we are recording. So once again, thank you for coming to our New Jersey Makers Day site meeting on what's new in STEM. We are going to start with just some general New Jersey Makers Day announcements. We have a couple of things that we want to make sure to highlight. The first is our New Jersey Makers Day store. You might have noticed that this year, we are launching a couple of custom ink fundraising campaigns with exclusive items that you can only purchase during their campaign time. So right now we are selling tote bags. They are great. They're like a mid-weight cotton, really nice quality. The straps are contrasting color. That is a great way for you to directly support New Jersey Makers Day as an organization. And who doesn't need another tote bag? We were talking about that before the meeting started. Everyone could use a new tote bag. So that is the first announcement. Like I said, that's a great way for you to show your support for New Jersey Makers Day. The second announcement reminder that I wanted to share is about the New Jersey Makers Day 2021 Incubator Sweepstakes. You might have heard of this before. This is a new opportunity to earn funding for your site. So anytime you engage with the New Jersey Makers Day Network, you earn entries into this incubator sweepstakes. And I believe February 20th is the last day to earn your entries, but all of your entries will be tallied up. We'll do a random drawing, and one site will win a $1,000 digital gift card to a STEM vendor of their choice. So you can earn entries by attending site meetings like this one. Everyone who's here today will earn an entry, attending our free professional development opportunities, and engaging with us on social media. So let me put the link for that form in the chat as well. Like I said, you earn an entry for being here. So make sure that you are logging that, keeping track of your points. Speaking of New Jersey Makers Day 2021, we are doing a virtual event, 2-day event for that. And we are looking for proposals from you, from our sites. So we are still accepting proposals through the end of this week, through Friday the 15th. And we are looking for virtual hands-on maker and STEM workshops for all ages. So we see all of the amazing work that you're doing in your communities, and we want to highlight that on a statewide level. So this is a great opportunity. If you have any questions about that or are interested in presenting, you can email Doug Baldwin at dbaldwin@njmakersday.org. And I'm going to hand it over to Jess.
Thanks, Caitlin. A couple other updates we have. We have some awesome professional development coming up. Our anti-racism in making series is full, unfortunately. The first session starts on Wednesday, but we're really excited about it. And I think I'm most excited that because of this virtual world, we can bring these people that are, you know, from California to come and do something for us, which I think is really awesome. But we do have space still open. Registration is still open for Leap into Science. And I'm going to put that link in the chat. Into Science, which looks like it's going to be really fun. And also you can talk to Doug, who just joined our call about this. So you can register for that event there on that link or email Doug. Leap into Science looks like it's going to be a really awesome event. It's actually a nationwide program that integrates like open-ended science activities with kids' books. So if you're doing a lot of children's programming, this is a great opportunity. Leap into Science Week, I think, is the last week in February. So it's good to start thinking about it now. And of course, you know, we're not going to go away without mentioning the listserv. If you guys aren't already on it, which you probably are if you're on this meeting, but if you're not, or you want to, oh yeah, here, Doug. Doug loves talking about this, so, you know, ask him. Okay, and this year's theme for the kit is light and shadow, which sounds really cool. So join our listserv. I think if you're not on it or you get your coworkers to be on it, it's a really great listserv. Doug is always sending out fun things on it. So please join the listserv. You just have to click, you know, ask to join the group. And again, if you have any questions, just ask Doug. Doug knows everything, right? And yes, he just sent out a free Arduino training this past week, which I saw and looks really cool. I wish I had some Arduinos still. Okay, any questions or comments before we hand it over to Sandy?
Quiet. Okay, so we will take that as a good sign. So we are going to pass it over to Sandy, who's going to tell us all about what's new in STEM.
I'll try at least. I'll do the best I can. Hi, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And before I do that, just putting into chat a link to the presentation, or I'm going to try and put a link to the presentation. Okay, 1 second. Let's try that again. That way, if you want to follow along on another device, or if you just want to download it for use later, you are welcome to do that. I've got a kind of big resource list in there, so I know that that can be hard to try and sketch, write down or whatever in the moment, but this way you have a copy for later if you need it. I'm going to go ahead and share. All right, so what's new in STEM? That's our topic today, and I'm going to kind of fly through a lot of material, so I'm going to try and keep it to about 5 minutes kind of a topic, and I will be asking questions. So if you're checking your email or taking notes or working on take and make kits while you're doing this, do try and chime in if you can. So let's start with the obvious. Come on, you can do this. There we go. My name is Sandy Roberts. I am the Makerspace Coordinator for Warren County Library System. Before that, I was a middle school STEM teacher. So I taught science, I taught algebra, I taught engineering and technology. And before that, I was a biochemist. So science has been a thread through my life since I was about 3 years old, when I informed my mother that I was going to be a scientist someday. And she said, okay, sure. It's kind of like kids want to be a princess, except it actually worked out in my case. My story is I became an educator when I had my own kids and discovered how much fun it was to teach kids science and to teach them engineering, and kind of made that career switch from being in the lab and working with bacteria to being in a classroom and working with kids and bacteria. So I represent the Warren County Library System. We were established in 1930. We're way out in rural Warren County, New Jersey, but our 4 branches actually cover the whole county. So we've got a really diverse group that we work with. Everything from our Blairstown branch, which is definitely a very rural community, to our branches near Hackettstown and Phillipsburg, New Jersey, which are a little more, of a city. So it's interesting because each of our branches have a really unique personality. And I mean, some of you may have that kind of situation too. But I do programming for all 4 branches. Before COVID, that meant traveling from branch to branch and bringing programs with me. Now, of course, it's all online. And that's been an interesting transition. I'm sure we've all experienced how much fun that can be. So I've done everything from live streamed programs on YouTube and Facebook, recorded programs, Zoom classrooms, everything that we can try, we've done. And right now we're finding that what works for us is pairing a take and make with a program and then doing a Zoom classroom. And I, tip for those that might be thinking about it, I record everything on Zoom and then set those settings so that they can't be downloaded, has a password, and is only good for a week. And that way, if somebody missed a program, I send out that link and they can still participate. They can still use that bag, even if they couldn't actually physically be there when we were building together. So that's kind of the model I'm following right now for a lot of things. And so right now I'm doing pretty much 3 larger programs a week, usually about 25 kids, mostly on engineering and science projects. And they're all a little different. Some are like multi-week programs where kids will meet for 4 weeks. Others are 1 day a week or, one-off programs. But I know we're all kind of mixing it up and trying new things. And we're going to talk more about that as we go through the program. I will also put in a plug because I'm always getting reminded that I should put in a plug. I am the author of the Big Book of Maker Camp projects for McGraw-Hill. So if you've seen the Big Book of Makerspace projects and those books by Colleen Graves, This is the newest in that series. And if you are starting to think about maker camps or camp projects or summer reading, I happen to think it has a lot of cool ideas. And if you have questions about any of those, absolutely reach out. I am happy to coordinate with you. I'm happy to come and zoom in and do a program with you. It's got everything from coding and crafting and a little bit of cooking and, you know, camp songs. It's the product of many years of hosting camps. So that's my official plug. I hope you have it in your libraries. Okay, quick overview for today. We're going to talk first about defining STEM. Then we're going to talk a little bit about expanding on that definition. And then we're going to talk about some, you know, new trends that we really need to be aware of when we're bringing STEM to our patrons and to our libraries. So we're going to talk about the economy. We're going to talk about ways that small business and entrepreneurship are influencing STEM and vice versa. We're going to talk about community and ways that we can enhance our community through our STEM projects, but also how we can use community-driven projects to bring more patrons into our programming. Representation, I think this 2020, if ever there has been a year that made us really face some of the social challenges that we have, really think about diversity and equity, I think 2020 has been it. So we're going to talk about representation because that is a really important movement in STEM and in maker culture right now. And then obviously everybody's favorite, online programming, distance learning, and virtual learning, and what that means for the future of STEM and STEM education. So that said, let's see if I can get some people to participate a little bit. We'll start with a very simple question. What is STEM? So if you could, in the chat, give me 3 words, items, people, songs, whatever pops into your mind when you hear the term STEM. Anybody? Or are we all checking our email? Which I understand. I'm not dissing people checking their email. Where'd my chat window go? It disappeared on me. All right, I'm seeing something. Let's see. All right, critical thinking. Oh, that's a huge one. Problem solving, hands-on learning, scientific process, cross-subject. Oh, you guys are on the ball. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with absolutely all of those. Anyone else want to chime in? Anyone else got some thoughts on what STEM means to them or what pops into their head? Just kind of curiosity. Yeah, it's active learning. Oh my gosh, that is so true. Those are all so important. And that really is the heart of STEM, right? We can get into fancy definitions, and we will. But at the end of the day, it really is about, you know, getting kids, getting their families, getting our patrons to be curious, to get them to think critically, to get them to solve problems, to get them active and hands-on. And that's really what we want to be doing. And yes, doing that from the context of how can we integrate different topics and how can we look at a process, not always the scientific method, right? But the engineering process, the design process. How can we use that to help us innovate and create? And that's basically the heart of it. So this is the National Science Teachers kind of definition of STEM. Interdisciplinary, okay, right? Approach to learning where rigorous academic concepts are coupled with real world lessons. And basically the idea is that we're trying to make connections between our schools, our communities, work, and the rest of the world while developing our science, technology, engineering, and math literacy. So I think the two we tend to gravitate towards, and a lot of folks gravitate towards, are the science and engineering. And that's because they kind of came first, right? We had science and engineering long before anybody was calling it STEM. Science has been taught in schools for a very long time. Engineering kind of has been sneaking in there. I still personally don't feel like we have engineering standards that are always applied as much as they could be. And I'd love to see more of that used because engineering is such a fundamentally important part of our both our economy and our world these days. But science is your systematic knowledge, physical, natural world, and you gain that knowledge through observation and experimentation. I'm assuming you guys know this stuff, so I'm going pretty quickly. Engineering then takes science and makes it practical, right? Takes that knowledge and applies it to something in the real world, like construction or computers or, you know, all these different things that we think of as engineering. Now, technology right now, I feel like is kind of the popular one in the class, right? Everybody talks about tech, especially in 2020 with everything that's gone on. So that's your branch that deals with using technical means to make life better, right? And I want to just take 1 second to remind all of us that technology is not just computers, smartphones, and the internet. Technology is hammers and soldering irons and gears. So you do not, please do not think that you have to have a huge technology budget to be teaching technology in STEM. There is so much. I did an entire series over the summer, live stream series called Tool Time. And I spent a whole week, a whole half hour just talking about hammers and the different types of hammers and different applications for those different hammers. It was one of the most popular programs I had for the summer. I had people that if I was 10 minutes late, they were calling my director. And we just kind of went through different classes of tools. I threw in some technology. We threw in the digital cutters. I talked about sewing machines. I talked about 3D printers. But at its heart, it was just what kinds of different technologies do we have across a whole spectrum that are out there to help you create. So don't think that technology only has to, get plugged in at the end of the day. And then there's mathematics. If technology is a popular one in class, mathematics is a shy one in the corner. And sometimes I feel like, especially as a former algebra teacher, that maybe we don't give math its fair shake when we're teaching STEM. So I just want to encourage you all to incorporate really simple math into your STEM programming. It can be talking about different forms of measurement, right? It can be simple things like just talking about the difference between units and changing units. All of these things are absolutely STEM concepts. They're absolutely maker concepts. And we sometimes don't take the second to slow down and talk to our patrons and talk to our students about them. But take the time to graph something or to at least show a graph if you're doing a science lesson. Sometimes when you can't be in the classroom with kids, and I speak from personal experience here, getting them to actually graph something on their own can be a real challenge, but showing them a graph or having them input data into a shared Google Sheet, you can still incorporate that idea. So I really do encourage you to think about mathematics and how you can incorporate that into your lessons, or at least highlight it in some of your lessons and some of your projects, because it is really important. And math competency has improved in our students over the last 5 years, but we still have a ways to go to really be competitive. I think we're number 30 in the world. And that, I think we have a long way that we can still go. So any opportunity to give kids that little shy mathematics in the corner, give them a little spotlight when you can. Now you're probably saying, wait, what about I've heard of STEAM and I've heard of STREAM? And yeah, you certainly have. So that brings us to our first concept, which is expansion. And I think it's pretty natural as educators, as makers, as thinkers, as creators, that we are always going to want to push outside that box. And that is a great thing to want to do. So obviously that bubble of STEM has grown and has widened to include other ideas. Here are a couple of the most popular. STEAM. I think a lot of us are probably doing STEAM programming. And that just means that you're incorporating the arts, humanities, language, arts, drama, music, visual arts, design, all kinds of new media, stop motion animation. And this, I feel like STEAM, because it has that element, can sometimes be really engaging in a virtual environment, right? Oh, great. Never heard of STREAM before. Good. We're going to talk about that because that is the heart of a library right there. But one thing I will encourage you with STEAM, don't just say, oh, we're crafting, we're throwing some glitter on it, that's STEAM. Really think about the connections you're making to art. And when you can, pull in fine art, pull in different cultures and their art, pull in different music, and even talk to the kids. I let the kids help design their playlist when we might be working on an engineering project, but just the act of them thinking about what mood do they want to set for that project can make it kind of add that STEAM aspect, because they're designing their environment while they're designing their project. STREAM, this one, I'm hearing more and more about, and I think it's really growing in library circles. And that is where you're really highlighting reading and writing. And the goal is to encourage more collaboration, more communication, lots of creativity, and to really think critically. If you could think way back to school, that first time you had to write a lab report, that's an intimidating thing to do. But if we are giving kids those skills right from the beginning, from preschool level, they can draw, or you can do a read along with them, and encourage the idea that science doesn't happen just in your classroom. Science just doesn't happen just in the lab. It happens everywhere. It needs to be communicated. For those of you that are Mythbuster fans, you may be familiar with Adam Savage. And he likes to say, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. So, but if we just tell kids that they have to document their work, but don't really show them how that works, show them how to do that, then we're really missing an opportunity. And STREAM is so perfect for libraries. And there are more and more resources coming out now that pair great books with hands-on projects that you can do as story times, that you can do as STREAM projects. And we've started a STREAM story time here at our library, where we'll pair a book that is on a STEAM topic and then add in a craft project or a engineering project or a science project related to it, and encourage kids to read and then to reflect in writing, even if it's a sentence, on what they did. I love to incorporate STREAM as well. I do a Make for Others program every February with our library. And so we really tie in a lot of literacy there, because we often do writing projects out to our troops, or writing projects to kids in hospitals, or writing projects to nursing homes. Oh, great. So in LEAP, we discuss the Venn diagram of literacy and STEM. Yeah, I mean, this is all about context connections. So STREAM, I have some resources there in my presentation, but really think about how you can add the reading and writing to your STEAM classes and to your STEAM classes, because it just adds an element that I think libraries are particularly well suited to address. And then of course there's your Maker Ed, technically not STEAM, though I have seen people start calling, adding an extra M to the end of STEM or to the end of STEAM to just denote that maker education idea. And of course, I think we all love Maker Ed, but that approach is really about problem-based, project-based learning, and it tends to be very hands-on, very collaborative. I think the teamwork aspect of Maker Ed is one of the ones that's really important and important to incorporate. I like to remind my students that science and engineering and none of these things happen like one guy in a garage. I know there's that myth in America of like one thinker in a garage and suddenly we have Windows. No, that's not real. It may have kind of started that way, but it's never really the full story. Any kind of technology, any kind of science, any kind of engineering, and frankly, any higher level mathematics is a team effort. It's a collaborative effort. And that's part of what makes it really fun. So one thing I love about Maker Ed is that it always reminds us that we should be looking for ways to work well in teams, ways to share and collaborate, because those skills apply to anything else that you're doing. So some things to think about, and I just threw a ton of questions here to maybe get people waking up and thinking. So educational technology, we are all using ed tech way more than probably ever before, but do we really think about the purpose of the technology that we're using? Are we just using technology because we have it, or because it's new and it's sexy? Like, wow, we have a new robot, but how are we going to really use this robot? Okay, Arduino is great. I already signed up for that workshop, and I've used Arduino before, but what's the point of offering an Arduino workshop? What's the point of, putting Arduinos in circulation? What are we really trying to communicate? And do we use our technology in safe and productive ways? I think internet safety this year has been on a lot of educators' minds. I don't know if you've had the experience, but I certainly have, where I've had to consider, what am I doing with these recordings? How am I making sure it's safe? It's not getting out there to the public. What do we do with trolls? What do we do with digital citizenship so that our participants are behaving in a way that is conducive to learning? So there are just how do we address inequalities? So there's so many ed tech concerns that we need to just be aware of as we're thinking about STEAM, and also thinking about how we can use STEM to address those concerns. How can we use the technology we're doing? Can we make our own little app? Yes, you can. There are free, easy to use, based on Google Sheet app makers out there that you can use in ways to enhance what you're teaching or to encourage kids to build. So just really think about how you're using tech and use it thoughtfully. And then supporting educators. I have been in science and technology for a long time now, 30 years or whatever. And I still need help. I was having a conversation just the other day with another STEM educator about Raspberry Pi. And I was like, well, I've got one and I've played with it, but I don't really know what to do with it. I have students that know better what to do with Raspberry Pi, and that's okay. I don't mind them teaching me. But we all have blind spots and we all have skills that we're looking to learn. And I think one of the most important things that we need to do as we are building STEM and as the definition of STEM is expanding and expanding, and there's more and more offered, is that we really need to be thinking about how we're providing support. And that's why I love so much of what Doug and Caitlin and Jess do with New Jersey Makers Day by offering different programs so that you can build those skills. And then skill building, right? So often it can be really easy to focus in on the project. Like we want to do the project that we've got in our head, rather than really stepping back and thinking, what is the goal? What is the skill I'm trying to teach? And I mean, I'm not saying that I'm perfect at this. I make this mistake all the time. I'm like, well, today I want to make a cool Christmas tree out of, ribbon, but what do we really, and that's a maker project, a crafty project. It's not a STEM project. But if for example, last week I was teaching Physics Quest, and we're talking about Katherine Johnson, and we were talking about, I asked the kids basically a question: if you drop two balls of different weights from the same height, which is going to hit first, the heavier one or the lighter one? Now, it's fun to drop a bunch of balls and to get crazy, but we really want to think down to, what was the point? Why was I teaching them this? And really, I wanted them to understand how various forces could work on something, and how gravity is a constant force and a constant acceleration. And so I had to kind of step back and say, what's the point of what I'm doing? And then design from there. Because I want them to build skills and gain understanding. I don't want them to just, okay, it's fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I also want to always make sure that there's a point to what we're doing. And built in with that is, how can I have them collaborate? How can I have them problem solve? How can I have them, sometimes you manufacture problems for kids to solve, or challenges are going to get in their way, or barriers, so that they can overcome them. So that's me talking for a minute. Let me ask, if you could add anything to STEM, if you could add a letter in there, what would that letter be? Like, what would you like to see STEM focusing on more? What would you like to add? And I'll be doing this periodically, so you got to pay attention. Or not. I guess I can't give you a grade. There is no quiz. Anyone have any thoughts? What they would like to add to STEM if they were the one making all the acronyms out there? All right, I'm seeing some things coming in. Let's see. Q for questioning. Oh my gosh, you just blew my mind. I love that. I love the C for collaboration and communication. Chris, wellness. Oh, wow. I honestly never thought of that as something that would be so important, because technology can be stressful, and really grounding it in, how do we use this to make ourselves healthier and happier? Wow, those are all three of those are really great thoughts. Design. That's the start of it all, right? And I have a eldest child who started in engineering and is now in graphic design. And you know what? It's all the same mind space. It's many times many of the same mathematical skills as she was using in one. And design. D for data. This goes back to my love for math. We don't spend enough time really thinking about data. And I think we're seeing this year with 2020 and all this discussion of COVID, people don't understand data. They don't understand statistics. And that is not me dissing anybody. I had to take a class or two in it, when I was at school. But people really don't understand how you deal with data and evidence and analyze it. So I think that's a great idea. And I'll tell you, people have really customized this, and you can do that too. You're allowed to do that too. You can make your own acronym. But I know when I was teaching at a Catholic school for a while, and our religion teacher used STREAM to mean religion incorporated in her STEAM. So she did architecture projects with the kids, rebuilding out of paper and cardboard famous churches. So you can make it your own. And I think that that's one thing I want to just make sure we all are really aware. Great ideas. Ooh, I'm stealing some of those. All right. Just checking in on time because I am a little bit, if you've ever worked with me before, you know I'm chatty. Economy. STEM is powering the marketplace right now. We all know this. So how can we really grab that and bring that into our programming? So over the last decade, tremendous increase in new STEM jobs. 86% of Americans believe that they are vital to our economy. Okay, so you already have an in with your patrons just by offering STEM programming. Because they know it is important. They know that they want their kids involved. The goal is not to turn those kids off, though, and to keep them engaged. And we'll talk more about that. Education. Though we've made huge improvements, we've actually improved a lot over the last 5 years. And even since, I think we really started funding STEM education, I think like 2007. No worries. But we've made a lot of strides in our STEM education. And we've seen math skills really increase. We have not seen our core science skills increase. Our technology skills are certainly increasing. You know, American kids, they love tech. They love game design. But we still have a ways to go. And informal education is going to fill a lot of those gaps because schools are, let's face it, underfunded, overworked. But it's so important. Jobs, okay, 8 in 10 of the fastest growing jobs are in STEM fields. 92% of employers say that they need more technical skills and that their need for technical skills is going through the roof. But given all that, I think 2018 was the year I was able to get the most recent data. There were still 2.4 million unfilled jobs in STEM fields in America. So there's tremendous opportunity, and we aren't necessarily catching up to what the need. And what we're seeing is that a lot of times then that need is being filled by immigrants coming from other countries. And some policies over the last couple of years have made some of that challenging for universities and for tech companies particularly. So there are some really big gaps that we need to fill, and we need to be thinking of the future and how we're going to do that. And libraries and informal spaces are going to be a really important part of that, because there's only so much that these teachers can get done in a day. You know, it's just the simple truth. So some considerations. Skills gaps. Despite, like I said, despite a lot of gains, our scores are still lagging. A lot of graduates don't have the hardcore technical skills, which is why there's been such a demand for coding in classrooms and in informal spaces. So if you aren't teaching coding, you need to find a way to do it. If it isn't you, I know Doug, for example, has a group of dedicated young people that help and volunteer with coding. If it's not something you're comfortable with, I guarantee you've got people in your population that you can bring in to help with that. But the other thing are some of the soft skills that they're missing. They may have the technical background, but they can't communicate. And that's where we go back to that stream idea, right? They can't present the ideas. They can't write the memo. And we have to address that too. We have to make sure that those kids are going into graduate school or going into their first job, and they can not just know the math and science, but they can adequately communicate that, because this is a social media world. And if you cannot express your ideas effectively, you're going to get left behind. And that may or may not be fair, but it is the truth. The other things that we need to look at are support for trades. You probably have a technical school in your county. I think most counties, if not all counties, have a tech school. Get in touch with them. They are a wonderful place to not only find really dedicated teachers and students that can be volunteers for your programs, but they have their finger on the pulse of what's getting hired. Okay, they can tell you what in your area are trades that people are going into. And that is a great relationship to have. I am very close with both our engineering and our computer science teachers at our local tech school. And they're a wonderful resource. Apprenticeships, okay? This is, a lot of kids are not, for many reasons, between neurodivergence and differences in learning, between the cost of college. We're seeing more and more students look at apprenticeships. And so support for young people that are maybe not taking a traditional college route, but may need support through mentoring, through non-traditional resources. We're going to see a lot more of that because there are more and more people going into STEM fields in untraditional ways, especially in the tech sector. And I will again say, my eldest kid is one of those kids. She has, at this point, she has dropped out of high school with my permission and is instead doing an apprenticeship in graphic arts. And you know what? Since she was able to pass the GED in the first try, I'm not too concerned about it. She's got a lot of other skills, but there are kids, you know, she's neurodivergent and she has a lot of health issues. So that was a path that made sense for her. And we're going to see more of that. Homeschooling is through the roof right now. More and more parents are choosing to homeschool this year. They may or may not go back to traditional schooling. So we're going to have to find out what skills those populations need and develop programming or develop resources to support them. Entrepreneurship, Doug knows, anyone who knows me knows, I am really big on entrepreneurship as part of your STEM and maker curriculum. Small business drives our economy. 44% of the US economy is driven by small business. And small business right now is leading the way for green technology. They're developing most of our green technology and implementing most of our green technology in this country. And the truth is, climate change is happening. Green technology is going to be a huge sector. So developing entrepreneurship skills is really important. And we can offer that. Yeah, so I'm seeing Tanya, she's also seen a trend towards the apprenticeship opportunities. We have to be aware of that. We're going to be getting requests. And if we can set up mentoring opportunities in our library, now best of both worlds, right? So I will just put a plug out for, there are a lot of entrepreneurship programs that you can bring in that connect making and STEM skills and math skills. I personally like to use the TREPS program because developed by 2 educators right here in New Jersey. I have had tremendous success with it. I think I've held 15 TREPS marketplaces at this point, and it's a program that brings kids over the course of 6 weeks from developing an idea to a business plan to actually hosting a marketplace and selling their materials and selling their goods and services. And you know, it's inspired a number of kids. And I had my first student this year that graduated high school and bought her first car with the money that she made on a business that she started, you know, I don't know, 8 years ago now with TREPS. So entrepreneurship can be really powerful, and it's really important, and people are interested. Reach out to local small business groups, reach out to local chambers of commerce, see if they'll come in and do programming. I guarantee they will. I've got like 3 coming next month. They are eager to share information and to build community. Cybersecurity is another one. Every computer science teacher I have spoken to has said cybersecurity, artificial intelligence. They are fast growing markets. They are much in need. If you've been following the news about, you know, the election, we know that cybersecurity is really important there. If you've been following the recent hack in the government, know that cybersecurity is going to be a growing industry as we are more and more online as a nation and as a global community. I can tell you, I know of multiple large universities that have been hit with malware or ransomware in the last year and have suffered tremendous consequences as a result of that. It's a really challenging thing to deal with. So there's going to be a huge desire for people that are educated in these topics. I'm seeing a question come in. How do we get trades like welding, heavy machinery? So what I have found for some of those things is because I don't have that equipment, I've paired with maker spaces that do. So I have Lehigh Valley makers. And what we're working on is how can I support their efforts and they can support our efforts, and how can we maybe do library memberships, you know, that people can check out like an item, like they can a museum membership, if they want to go and learn those kind of welding skills, if I'm not able to offer them. So just a thought, and we'll definitely, I've got questions at the end, but I feel like that's a really big one to talk about. So make sure that we circle back around on that. So yeah, I'm just going to throw that out there. Cybersecurity and AI are going to be really important. And even simple things like, how do I build a website? These are STEM topics that everybody needs to know. All right. Community, addressing real world challenges. Now, when we talk about real world, part of the goal there is not only to make things that are useful to the world, but also because it's more engaging. This helps to close the gender gap some, and it helps to close diversity gaps, because instead of making STEM seem like something that's rigid or very academic, it makes it something that is in their communities and real. Community colleges, fantastic idea, and businesses. I meant to mention that. I actually have written it down here, but I was worried about my time. Small businesses. I have an architecture firm that comes in and does programs, and we're fostering a small business community, and that's part of my goal for 2021. So again, that's that real world connection, right? When you show people that using STEM means you can run your own business, means that you can be more employable, means that you can be making products, and they can see that as someone who's already doing it, and maybe form an internship, get that apprenticeship, get that mentor. Those are the kind of connections that libraries are so uniquely positioned to offer. And this comes, and same thing with your community organizations. I know Plainfield Library, I don't know if anyone from Plainfield Library is here. I know that they have a great relationship with like their food banks and things like that. Those community connections, if you tie in STEM elements, tie in technology elements, and put your patrons to work on things like that, that's interesting to them because they know the people using those services. And then I'm going to throw in SEL, which is social emotional learning. If you have not done any research on SEL and how you can use it in your STEM programming, it's definitely time. It might be past time. So SEL focuses on things like self-awareness, okay? Self-management, social awareness, your relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Now, these are soft skills, but if we want to help patrons become citizen scientists, become responsible business people, use technology in responsible ways, those soft skills are really important, really important. So a couple of things to think about as you think about your community. Going green, on the forefront of, so every time somebody studies what's happening in STEM, what's the future of STEM? Climate change, climate change, climate change. And the truth is, especially your middle schoolers and especially your middle school girls, they are very interested in climate change. And millennials and Gen Z coming up, very, very interested in climate change. Use that for your programming. It's actually pretty easy to connect to people that are doing even just solar panels in the community or, green design for homes. Get them in and ask them to help out with programs. There's a lot of curriculum out there that addresses STEM in a hands-on way that you can adapt and use for programming. People are really interested, and it's an industry that's growing. Health fields. I mean, COVID-19, right? All of a sudden, epidemiology is a word everybody knows. Who would have thought? So looking for ways that we can make people citizen scientists or citizen engineers. I don't know how many of you, a lot of resources, ALA, resilient communities, libraries respond to climate change, and master gardeners. Oh, such a good idea. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Master gardeners are a fantastic group to connect with. I printed. So I'm seeing great links. Awesome. Thank you. How many of you helped make PPE during the first couple months of COVID? I know our 3D printers were going, yep, right? What a fantastic way to maybe take that now and do a program, a virtual one even, and challenge patrons to design it better. How can you make this better? How can you improve upon it? What are the needs in your community right this minute? How can you streamline the process? How can you make it cheaper, faster, whatever? That's going to be something people are interested in, and they're going to want to understand how this all works in the first place. So think about ways you can make those connections to COVID-19. And it's a great opportunity for just teaching simple old bacterial science. Saw a great project where on Science Sparks, clay, toothpicks, show different viruses, talk about their different shapes, their morphology, how that affects their function, build the different viruses out of clay. Great hands-on connection to models and biology, fun STEAM project. Very easy to do. And then I'm planning to do it, but instead of clay, because I can't get that out to my patrons very easily, we're going to design pixel art. Okay, we're going to design viruses in pixel art, and then the next program will be dumping it into MakeCode and making a game out of it, like Blast the COVID, There's a lot of things that you can do that are going to be engaging. And then you may have heard of 21st century skills, okay? Well, now we're coming out with 22nd century skills. And I'm trying to rush because I know we're close. But that's focusing, instead of on collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking, we're adding connection, care, community, and culture, which brings us to representation. So DEI is the term commonly used here. Diversity, presence of difference within a given setting. So mixes of identities, race, gender, ethnicity, religion, nationality, or sexual orientation. But diversity is, of course, not enough. Just because everybody's in the same room together doesn't mean that they're working together, okay? Equity is an approach that ensures everybody has the same access to opportunities. And it recognizes that we don't all start from the same place. I think a lot of us have had this conversation over the last year, that we need to be focusing on equity, even if it's as simple as who has Wi-Fi and who doesn't, who has access to scissors and who doesn't. And then, of course, the larger issues of gender and race and, all these different things that we are talking about now more than we have in a while, and I'm glad to see that. And then finally, with inclusion, okay? And that's the idea of people with different identities being welcomed and valued. And these three things together are meant to help create a STEM environment where everyone's welcome. And the reason for that is that if you are not making sure that your STEM groups are diverse and that everybody's feeling welcome and encouraged to be part of your STEM programming, you're losing talent. We are literally keeping people that could otherwise be the next innovator from having access to the skills that they may need. So we don't ever want to do that. We are a public library. We want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to be a part of what we're offering. So culturally responsive practices or pedagogy, you can look that up and I have a link in my resources, talks about how to really develop genuine, trusting relationships with students that validate their strengths and interests. And I'll be 100% honest, I am in an area that is not diverse, okay? But through active work and through just creating welcoming spaces, we are seeing less represented ethnic populations really taking more and more part in our programming. And that has brought so much to the programs. Just because everybody's got different perspectives. We're thinking differently about the projects that we offer because each culture has different goals and needs, and it just enriches the whole program overall. And I know some of you are in wonderfully diverse areas, and I'm sure that you are thinking about ways that you can connect with those different groups. So at the end of the day, I read a great article and I included it in my resources that really kind of brought down these questions about why do you value diversity? Like, you need to sit and talk about that. You need to think about why it's part of your values. And you need to have the uncomfortable conversations sometimes with people that maybe are in marginalized groups and say, are we creating the environment that you need? Are we offering you what you need? And how can we do better? Because I know I'm going to be 100% honest, and I show up to every programming meeting every month saying this: we need to be doing better. Our library is not doing a great job on the diversity of our programming, and we need to be more inclusive. So I hope that you're having those conversations. And I'm just going to power through and we'll get to questions. Last thing, online. So distance learning can be really challenging with STEM because it is hands-on. So there can be a lot of unique challenges to teaching STEM and hands-on programming in an online environment. And that's where that technology component comes in, because there are a lot of apps out there, some better than others, and you may end up spending a lot of time looking through resources and apps. So I want to make sure that we have some time to share some of what we found. And if you would like to share into the chat right now some great virtual STEM apps, resources that you've got for folks, please, please, please share them. But we are kind of uniquely suited to bringing STEM home to families because we do have a way to distribute materials that sometimes schools don't. And we're lucky that way. We also can leverage technology for our patrons. We can help with Wi-Fi. We can help with giving hotspots. We can, some libraries are even loaning out laptops. And we can use that technology, not just for right now, but well into the future. And then a lot of us have these great resources, online resources. And I know we've spent the last 9 months training our patrons how to use those resources, what those resources are. And that takes a lot of effort to build that awareness and to train them to use them. But once you do, curbside pickup is pretty cool. I know as a busy mom with like 2 jobs, I love curbside pickup. When I had little kids, curbside pickup would have been great. That's something I don't think we're going to get rid of, but we need to make sure that our patrons know how to use it well. So make and takes. I am a make and take queen. I love make and takes. I do personally over 100 a month, which for our small population is a lot. I know there are folks out there doing hundreds a month. And, it's actually pretty simple, LOL, because it takes time to, get the supplies and pack up the supplies and get the supplies out. But it's a great way to foster your STEM programs. And it addresses equity, because I have kids that don't have access to stuff. And I have kids that have like mansions. I have a real gap there. By making sure everybody's starting from the same bag of materials, we can kind of level that a little bit. And that's a really great thing to do. Live streaming, Zoom classes, recorded content, technologies that have been absolutely invaluable. Think outside of that box. I took a training just recently where they were talking about passive or asynchronous content, curating Pinterest projects and experiments, because that there's a lot of garbage out there and parents are overwhelmed. So if you can take some time to put together a newsletter once a month on, here's our STEM topic for the month, here are some great projects by age level that you can do at home with stuff you have at home. If you can do a short podcast on a regular basis about like what the STEM news is. There are a lot of ways you can be creative to use technology and leverage technology in ways that provide for flexibility and adaptability for your patrons using real, unique resources. I just put out our Arduino, Makey, Microbit, bunch of snap circuits, little bits, all that kind of stuff. We have in circulation. They could check it out just like a book. And then I have resource books and other resources to go along with that. And I hope that others are doing that, because yes, you're always a little worried that will it ever come back? We'll charge it back to the client, to the patron, we'll make it work. But putting that into the hands of people at home is a really valuable thing. So we have to think outside the box of how we're doing STEM programming. It doesn't just have to be sage on a stage, I'm teaching a STEM class, right? We can use technology, and we can use, again, the really unique situation that libraries have to offer more. And then keep going. We have built so many skills doing virtual programming during this time. I know I have. I'm not giving up online programming because, I have people in nursing homes that may not be able to come in for yoga, but they can do it from their room. I have parents that don't get home till 6 or 7 o'clock at night. They can't make a 4 o'clock program at the library, but if it's recorded, they can do it together with their child. So think about the ways that we can use all of what we've learned this year to continue programming and offer even more to use this silver lining to keep that going and use it for our patrons to enrich their experience with the library. Whew, I am done talking. Feel free to unmute yourself. Let's hear it. Thank you, Melissa. So questions, thoughts, things that you want to share. Tracy, what's up? All right. Do you have anything you want to share? You don't have to. I'm not that teacher. I'm not going to be that teacher. Any questions? I know I just threw like a metric ton at you. And, I'm going to give you all my contact info here. That's my work email address, sandy@warrenlib.org. I don't tend to check it too much over the weekends, but sandy@enrichscience.com, which is my business address, because when I'm done with the library, I then decide to go and spend another 10 hours doing cool stuff. because I love what I do. But you can always reach me there. That's on my phone. I pick that up all the time as best I can. My phone number at the library, you're welcome to reach me there. I sometimes answer that line if I'm there, if I'm actually at my desk. And you can find me, I'm on Twitter a lot. That's one thing I want to point out is it's this brave new world. My PLN, my professional learning network, they're on Twitter now. And I love that I can say, oh my gosh, I can't think of what to do for XYZ. And I put it out there on Twitter. I have 30 responses. It's like that. So connect with me on Twitter, Kaleidoscope Sci. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. I have been a little bit quiet during this holiday season because I had a lot of personal stuff going on. But I think most people that have worked with me, they know I'm pretty chatty. I'm always willing to help. I'm always willing to answer questions and collaborate. So yeah, last chance for any kind of questions, comments, ideas. I'd love to know what you folks are doing, because I'm always looking for new ideas that I can steal.
I want to make sure to point out too to everybody that this presentation, along with the recording of today's session, the link to the presentation itself will be uploaded to the New Jersey Makers Day YouTube account. And just reiterating what Sandy said about Twitter, I steal ideas from Sandy's Twitter all the time. It's so helpful. It's a great place to build your network.
I'm telling, and Instagram too. I mean, there's so many great, and I don't know how many of you are playing with TikTok, but I gotta admit, I'm finding some great science educators on TikTok doing some really cool stuff. So, don't be afraid of the social media. Stay away from the trolls on Twitter, but it's a great place to go for connecting with other educators. Yeah, sorry, I kind of went a little over time there, but
no, all great stuff, all worth it for sure. So if there are no other questions, we will wrap it up. Thank you, Sandy, for being here, and for everyone who joined. Don't forget to log your entry for our incubator sweepstakes. It's a chance to earn free money for your site. And hopefully we will see everybody soon.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This was really fun.